Speaking of Duval, the Jaguars fired their defensive coordinator and then let 2 offensive guys go today, but didn't fire Press Taylor, their offensive coordinator. And the statement that Doug Peterson issued is the weirdest statement I've ever seen firing coaches. Since our season's end, I've made the difficult decision to relieve several members of the coaching staff on both sides of the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, on both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, of their duties. I want to thank each of these coaches for their tireless efforts these last 2 seasons. Ultimately, I felt change was necessary to allow our football team to reach the goals for which we are capable. No, doesn't name a single name. These guys are fired.
Well, the part of the problem is they're firing coaches and not firing the general manager. And Trent Baalke, look, he's going to get all over me again like he always does. He doesn't like me anyways. I don't care. I did radio last night in Jacksonville with Tony Vaselli, and I flat out said, somebody asked, what would you do? I said, they need to make changes with how they build the roster. And that means getting rid of Trent Baalke. And they for whatever reason, Coughlin was there. He was there. He stays. Dave Caldwell's there. He's there. He stays. Caldwell goes. Urban Meyer comes in. Urban Meyer goes. He stays. He stayed through it all. And yet, look at their roster. This team, by the way, because of his roster building, on paper right now will be worse than they were this year. Because they have to pay Josh Allen or tag him. Calvin Ridley, what do you do with him? If you pay Calvin Ridley, you have to give up a second-round pick. Yep. You're not going to do that. They have offensive line issues. Sheriff makes way too money and played poorly. The center isn't very good. He drafted him in the 3rd round. This year's draft, this is what they got out of this year's draft. Think about this. The right tackle is going to be a good player. He starts. And the Harrison kid from Oklahoma, good player. 2nd round, the tight end from Penn State had 36 receiving yards and can't block.
36 receiving yards.
Yes. The backup running back that he drafted in the 3rd round, Bigsby, didn't do much of anything. They have problems. They're little on the offensive line. They're not physical enough on the offensive line. They get blocked on the defensive line. They got high-priced guys over there on the defensive line that get blocked. And he's responsible for that. And yet he keeps going and going and going and going. And I don't understand it. Now, there are rumblings that maybe he's going to walk away, but I don't know if that's true. But
Trent Baalke's going to walk away?
There's retire maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But I can't imagine he leaves that job.
So it's fitting that we're talking about him real quick just because remember he won a power struggle with Jim Harbaugh. The 49ers picked Baalke over Harbaugh, who clearly they made the wrong decision there. And now here we are 10 years later having another conversation about how you can pin a lot of the blame on Baalke.
Somebody asked me on text, because I was texting some friends like, dude, like Jim Harbaugh just wins everywhere he goes. He might be a crazy person. He might be abrasive, whatever. He wins. And he just wins. And somebody was like, what's the deal? He can't stay anywhere more than 3 years. I was like, well, he didn't do that for a while. He's been at Michigan for 9 years now, and it is his alma mater, but 9 years is a long time to be somewhere. And he went to 3 NFC championship games with the Niners and then went 8-8 and lost a power struggle to Trent Baalke. And that's why Trent Baalke drafted Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, that in his long arms.
And then Trent Baalke signed Jim Tom Sula to be the head coach.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that combine? You remember that combine?
To him. Yeah. And so, again, office politics in the National Football League is awful. And so Mike Vrabel is probably guilty of getting fired because of office politics. He and Rand Carthen supposedly didn't get along. They're two strong-minded individuals.
Pete froze.
That was the Titans. They cut off me when I was talking to Brent, and now they're cutting off. They have that kind of power.
No, but here's what happens. A coach and a GM go into a building together, and they're all happy. The first year we're working together. Hey, it's great. And then the draft happens, and they draft a player, and he doesn't develop the way they thought he would. Well, the coach starts blaming the GM for drafting that guy where he drafted him, and the GM starts blaming the coach for not developing him. And so then what do you have? You have friction in the building, and when they have success, the egos start getting in the way. who's responsible? It's my team. I built it. It's my team. I coached it. And so when you have that, that's when you have the problems. That's why it's great for the Rams with Les Snead and Sean McVay. They don't have that. Les, you've been around Les. Les isn't an egomaniac. I mean, yeah, Les.
Sure, he's got great hair, but he's not an egomaniac.
He portrays himself as the cool surfer dude and all that and everything else. But there's no, between the two of them, it's not an ego versus ego thing. And I think that's, these guys have to realize you're at the top of your profession, both of you, and you're both making millions. Why would you allow your ego to interfere with that?
Yeah. Because that's how you get to the top of your profession. I don't know. Egomaniac. So look, Jaguars, I agree with you completely. Jaguars would be better off getting rid of Trent Baalke. He really, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how people do this, not only just like in football, but also in life, how people can like sort of just weasel their way into these positions of power. And it's like, like who knows? Like, I can't even imagine what Trent Baalke's like in like a meeting situation. I'm sure he's fantastic.
Well, he listens and pays attention to everything.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, You guys know I do the Jacksonville radio from 4 to 6 every Monday during the season with Tony Baselli. There's a guy who was an intern in their organization and then went to Minnesota and was in their PR department. And he told me, he said his job when he was the intern was to monitor everything I said on Monday. I mean, but the reason I do that show is because they asked me to do it, and I did it with the one caveat: I can say whatever the hell I want. So if I think this guy needs to be fired, I fired Urban Meyer every week, and that got out of control. Probably even on my part, I was bad, but I fired him every week on their air. And if you're not going to be real, then I won't do it. I don't need to do it. I just do it because I like being involved in that organization in terms of kind of my pulse on it, because I've been around it so long. So he needs to go. And you know what? If he walked up next to me and he said to me many a time, "You're hard on me," and I go, "I'm hard on you when you do things bad, and if you do things well, I'll tell you do things well. If you don't like it, oh well." And so his time has come in Jacksonville.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, let's take a break. When we come back,
we didn't even mention the fact that he hired Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly.
Oh, the Jim Tomsula thing. Remember that combine?
Way to throw that out.
When we were having the conversation, it was me, you, Lockenfora, Bob Lang, the old 49ers PR guy, and Tom Sewell. And he's like, Bob's like, this guy's fantastic. And we're talking to him, and he's like drooling and spitting. And we're like, this is going to be such a train wreck.
Well, you know what? He was no threat.
No, he was not. That's right.